Welcome to Blue Tinted Glasses, the home of Leicester City talk on YouTube. Fan debates, live watch-alongs, post-match reactions, and all the Foxes banter you could ask for. Subscribe now and see the game through Blue Tinted Glasses.
Just into race clear. He's got Jamie Vardy with him. Jamie Vardy sets off. Jamie Vardy! Ball back here for Darwin. Oh, he scored! An absolute belter! That is trademark Abdul Fattahwood.
This one into the box. Nugent over the top. Oh, what a goal! David Nugent's just scored a beauty. He's made Forest look like fools.
Premier League champions 2016. The amazing Leicester City.
Good evening and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses. Hope you're all doing well. It's Wednesday night, which means it is time for Fox's Den, and we have a fun, interesting topic to talk about tonight. I was going to say no moaning. I think there will be some moaning at some point tonight. There always is with every topic relating to Leicester City, but there we go. That's just how it goes. So yeah, before we get into it all, make sure to hit a like on the video. Make sure to hit subscribe as well. Let me come to you first, Steve, mate. How's it going with you?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
All good, mate. All good. Jack Warswick, you haven't been on the channel for a while, mate. It's been a few weeks. Obviously, just quickly let people know what you do and the page that you run, because people will recognise you for sure.
Yeah, so I run Rising Foxes, which is the Leicester Academy account, which I started, I think, last year, like September time. And I just kind of realised that there wasn't a lot of like academy coverage from the club, so I thought I'd start it.
There we go. Good to get you back on, mate. You do little bits. You do writing as well, of course. Yeah, I'll put a link to that later on. And yeah, Adam, good to see you, mate. It's been a while. Hope you had a good Christmas and New Year, mate. How's things with you?
Yeah, well, good, thanks. Yeah, trying to stick to the New Year's resolution of the gym as much as I can. It's going wellish. But yeah, other than that, all good. Thank you, mate.
Good stuff. Yeah, I know how you feel on that one. But yeah, okay. Well, if you hadn't guessed already, everybody, today's stream is all about the youth, the academy, how they've done so far, what's to come in the future, and whether we think Leicester City are managing them correctly in the correct ways. Not just the club, but the manager, of course. And so yeah, it's an interesting one. So make sure to get your comments in throughout the course of the stream and let us know your thoughts. Before we get into it, so I'll tell you where we'll start. I'll come to you first, Steve. Now, we have seen quite a few academy players feature in some capacity this season. Who stood out to you the most so far, mate? Because I'll tell you, I think early on in the year, or early on in the season and pre-season, Jerry Monger was the one that everybody was talking about. But I think, recently there's a new guy on. Well, he's not a new guy on the block. We've all known about him, but he's kind of taken the headlines now, I think, a little bit in Louis Page. So who stood out to you the most this season?
It's a difficult one, really, because we haven't seen that many youth players get given an opportunity other than sort of Ben Nelson in recent weeks. We've seen Monger start off more regularly, but But actually, if you look at the squad itself, there aren't that many that actually seems to be starting games. But if you were to go on pre-season and the first few games, Louis Page did well against Charlton and Birmingham. Then we didn't see him once he signed the contract. We sort of chucked him in the dungeon again, and off you go, mate. You know, play with Thunder for a bit. So yeah, I would guess Louis Page is the standout, and then we've all been screaming for Aluko to be given a chance. Okay, his first opportunity didn't exactly go great in Southampton, but hopefully he gets more minutes going forward. So those two, because whilst we can talk about Monga, he sort of broke through last season for me. So I'm basing it on what I've seen so far this year. So it'd be those two.
Let me come to you, Jack. Now, you've had a close eye on all of these players for a long time. You knew before a lot of people, which ones were going to be good and stuff like that. But I'll change the question slightly for you, Jack. Who has kind of surprised you the most? I know we've only seen a few. We've only seen like Monga and Page and a little bit of Aluko, but and I suppose Jakob, right? Because he kind of, I know he's older, right? But he is a part of the academy. Ben Nelson, of course. Who surprised you the most this season?
I'd probably say Silko, because coming into the season, I wouldn't really have expected him to have this much of a role. And in his first few games, he did kind of struggle with the intensity and to get up to that level. But I think recently he's really came into his own and even started a game against Sheffield United, big game, and leading the line. So I would say I'm quite surprised by the way he's developed this year.
What about you, Adam, mate? Who's impressed you so far this season?
Yeah, I mean, it depends if we can cast Ben Nelson in this. I think he's been clearly the best one. But in terms of like breaking through this season, yeah, I'd say Louis Page for sure. And like Jack said, I'm quite surprised with Silko. When he first come in, I was one of these one thinking he ain't good enough. Everyone trying to compare him to McAteer when he broke through, but I didn't think he had that quality, but he's proved me wrong over these last few weeks. Like I said, he's come on in and done well, led the line. I think he's actually better going through the middle than he is out wide, personally. But yeah, I'd go Ben Nelson if you're going to cast him in that younger category.
Yeah. Now, forgive me, lads, because I'm going to be doing a lot of fact checking through Jack here tonight because of his knowledge on this. But am I right in saying, Jack, and it's just things I've read, I'm not saying this is the case, but am I right in saying, Jack, that out of all of the kind of academy players that have come through, I think you alluded to it a little bit, Silko was maybe the one that was least expected to go on and kind of have a role in the first team, and as you said, along with Page and Monga, he's been right up there in terms of contribution. I mean, Aluko's not really played too much yet. Silko's played more than him.
Yeah, coming into the season, he didn't have a great deal of experience. I know he was on loan at Wigan last season, that got curtailed by injury, but he's like 21, so he's 5 or so years older than all these other guys. So I think he's maybe from a different sort of generation of that academy team, so he maybe didn't play with those. So I think it was a bit unexpected, especially because McAteer left quite late into the window as well. So I think that was maybe why it subverted a few people's expectations.
Steve, I was going to say with Silko, I read something quite a while back now, and it might have even been before he started getting minutes with Silko, that Marty apparently, the club were looking at maybe another winger in the window in the summer, like a loan signing or something like that. But Marty decided to not do that because they had Silko at the club. Now, of course, Steve, I think, a factor in that decision was the money, right? They didn't want to go and spend money on a winger when they had Silko at the club. But Marty clearly likes him to a degree. I mean, Marty has sometimes even brought him on instead of Jeremy Monga, right, out on the wing. So he clearly does like him. Do you think that's the case? Do you think it was the right decision to use? Because we don't use him too often. It's not like we rely on him all the time. Do you think it was the right decision to stick with Silko instead of bringing in another winger?
Can I be brutally honest?
Yeah, of course.
No, fucking hell. Unfortunately, look, he had plenty of game time in League One last year. He's had 13 matches this season. He's played 226 minutes and he's got 1 goal so far this season. I don't think he's an out-and-out winger. So, taking over from Steffi or Abdul, he's a left winger effectively, isn't he? So, that would be Abdul? No, Steffi.
Well, ask Jack. Jack, what is his best position? You tell us, because from what we're seeing from the first team, it's he's played out wide, right, and he's played as a striker. So where do you think his best position is?
I've seen one of his Wigan games. It was probably his best one against Bolton. He was off the left and cutting in and putting a lot of cross onto his right foot. So I'd probably say that was his best.
But the downgrade from, I say Steffi is a downgrade because he's not been great this season, but he's a confidence player. But if you were to lose Steffi and then Monga and then Silko's your backup winger, that's not a position I'd like to be in all honesty. Look, given the minutes, by all means, he's a youth academy player. Bear in mind, he's not our actual youth academy player because he came through from Chelsea first, and then we when he was released there, he came through from Leicester from there. But overall, if it was going into next season and Silko was one of our main wingers, I'd be worried. In all honesty.
Well, I think that's natural. Obviously, he's not established himself in the first team yet, has he? Like he's a squad player at the moment. But I mean, he is old. Is he 21 or 21. Is he 20? 21. So he's a little bit older, and I think because of the abundance of young talent we've got at the club, like. It's like we've got a new shiny toy. Like when we talk about Monga and Page, they're the new guys on the block. It's like people sometimes forget about Braybrook and Alves and Silko, and you forget about them because you've got Monga and Page and Aluko, but they are still, I mean, Dewsbury Hall, I don't think was a first team player until I want to say 22 or 21. I could be, one of the two, right? So some players just do develop, later than others, and like Louis Page, for example, he's getting a lot of minutes now at 17. So, that's all right, Adam. No worries, mate. Yeah, jump out and jump back in. Let me ask you this then, Jack. We're going to talk about a few different ones, but I wanted to ask you, how do you think the youth players have been managed so far this season? We'll start with the negatives. What complaints would you have? Because, like, I know a few people on this channel, they say, I'm going to use an example here, Bade Aluko. Now, a lot of fans have been asking to see Bade Aluko all season, and the reason for that is because Luke Thomas, look, this isn't a show to go in on players, but Luke Thomas has been horrific. Ricardo Pereira isn't the player he was, a few years ago. There's been, quite frankly, some horrific performances at fullback and at centre-back, and we know Bade Aluko can do all of them roles, and he's barely played, and he was thrown into the Southampton game, Jack, and in a difficult game at left-back when his preferred choice is right-back, and he got sent off, and again, Jack, after that, a lot of people predicted maybe he wouldn't get back into the team then after that. And he didn't until, he's had a couple of sub-appearances and then finally the start against Cheltenham. But we saw against Cheltenham, Jack, he probably should be playing more often.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's tough throwing them in how they have, like, with young players, you need to ease them in. They need to get minutes here and there, maybe off the bench in games. And it's obviously not been the perfect season for that because we've struggled to see out games a lot of the time. So bringing a young player on isn't perfect. But I think with that Southampton game, it wasn't ideal conditions, especially against, Tom Fellows, one of the best wingers in the league. So I think with Bade Aluko, just ease him in, and Bade, I think he'll develop so much more as the season goes on as well, because he was only 16 when he joined the Leicester Academy, and he's already in the first team 3 years later. So I think it's clear that he's a quick developer. He's very adaptable. And I think he offers a lot more than Luke Thomas does. Like, the way that he can underlap, he can overlap. They're things that Thomas can't do. He's not good in tight spaces or coming inside. And I think with the Cheltenham game as well, we've seen how well he works with others, where he has that synergy and that chemistry. So, yeah, I'd definitely like to see more of him as the season goes on.
What about you, Steve? Like, when I say to you, maybe, name an example that a younger player hasn't kind of been managed well. Is that the first one you think of, or do you think of others? Because, like Louis Page, for example, he started a couple of games at the end of August, I think it was, and then Ramsey came in, and we didn't really see Louis Page then for a long time because, he was kind of, I think he had an injury at some point, but he also had the World Cup in the Youth World Cup in Qatar. But I think there were games where he was available and didn't get a kick. So what stands out? What would be the first example that you could think of, Steve, where maybe the youth haven't been managed well this season?
Well, one jumps to mind instantly, and that's Ben Nelson. He started that cup game against Huddersfield. He was terrible, and then we didn't see him again until November, where he played his first 90 minutes there. And since then, he's been sort of ever present. But yeah, he's the one that you think, well, okay, if Wout Faes isn't going to want to be here, then you play him in defence. He's somebody that could be a captain at this club. He's somebody that you could sell easily for 20 odd million pounds, if not more than that, if he has a decent season. So, why would you persist in playing Wout Faes or even Caleb Okoli at this stage? He's the one that I would say, start of the season, we all wanted him to come in. He played one terrible game, and then we didn't see him for 3 months. So yeah, he's clearly the obvious one, that's for sure.
And now, he's one of the first names on the team sheet, which shows that Marty was wrong. After the Huddersfield game, he kind of throws him out, and now you're seeing what he can do, and it kind of proves that Marty was wrong on that one. Adam, you're back, so good to have you back, mate. I was going to ask
about that.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. So I'll ask you similar. What can you think of, Adam? What are your thoughts on how the younger players have been managed this season? Do you think there's been a couple of Has there been anything that you've thought, that was a bit shit, like the club should have done better, the manager should have done better with that player? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the main one for me is Page. Like when he like you said, he got that offered that contract coming off the assist against Birmingham, and then we just didn't see him. I know he went away with England, and I think he had a little injury as well, but I feel like he could have been reintegrating quicker. And I think also Baddy Aluko should have been coming in at left back a lot earlier than he did. I remember Christensen even started a game, and we know he's just so poor. So I think Aluko should have come in, and I think if he was bedded in a bit earlier, he probably wouldn't have made the mistakes he made against Southampton, with them two kind of reckless challenges to get himself sent off. But he just didn't have that match experience before that.
And I think, if we talk about real-time mistakes, I think a lot of us said at the time during the Southampton game, after Aluko's first couple of challenges, the manager should have had a word. That's the perfect opportunity to kind of, speak to the player, because there was an opportunity. I remember there was a stoppage in play. The manager should have had a word with the player there and said, come on, mate, and done what he needed to do. But I think it was a disappointing start for him. However, and he's not a left back, Jack. He's a right, he can play all across, can't he? But his preferred position is a right back.
Yeah, and like you say, I think one of the biggest issues that game as well is he's probably the only defender in that back line that had the pace and the mobility as well when you're playing against the higher line to actually cover the large spaces. So, of course, he's going to look worse because of that, and he's having to be put in situations that are quite unfortunate. So, I think, as you say, if we bed him in, ease him in as the season goes on, then I think he'll be a starter definitely by the end.
Yeah. One thing I definitely... let me just bring this comment from Richard. Don't play Aluko as a left back. If he was to start, which is what I want, play him right back, square pegs and all. For me, Page has the most potential of the lot. He's going to be a top player. Yeah, all right. We've got an interesting topic coming up, but let me ask you all this then. Right now, after a few weeks, and I know it's impossible to say because we haven't seen the likes of, there's many younger players we haven't seen. But let's say out of the ones that we have seen, so Silko, I'm not going to include Ben Nelson here, but Silko, Monga, Louis Page, and Aluko. Am I missing any? Are they they're the ones that have played, right? Those four, I think. Yeah, there's no more that I'm forgetting.
Yeah.
Out of them four, which do you think has the highest ceiling? Who do you think's got the biggest potential? Because I think, again, 6 months ago, we would have all said Jeremy Monga. Has that shifted for anybody? Are any of you going to go for a Louis Page? What are you saying? I'll come to you. Steve.
I think Louis Page looks like the sort of player in a couple of years, he could fit into a Premier League midfield and look at ease. I did admit when he first came in, he looked a little bit lightweight, a little bit sort of timid. His passing was a bit poor, but I think that might have come with the nerves of playing your first couple of games. But him coming on in the last few weeks and playing against Cheltenham, he controlled that game. Really, he was fantastic against Cheltenham. And if he's already doing that at that age at League Two level, give him a couple of years in the Championship. He quite easily go into a Premier League side without any issues, and he could be that creative player and have a career that could span sort of 10 years or so. I think you and Pipes were talking about it on the Monday show for When You're Smiling, is that he's the sort of player that stays fit. He looks like he's a fit young lad, and consistency and actually being there on the pitch for 60, 70, 80 minutes every week shows your value. So I think he's the sort of player that will have the biggest career out of all of them.
Adam, what are you saying, mate? I mean, look, football fan, we're all fickle, right? We change our mind all the time about managers, about players. So we're going to do the same here with the younger players. Have you switched it up? Are you thinking now Louis Page maybe is the one to have that biggest potential? Because did you see the Sky Sports video with JJ and Fatawu and Louis Page?
Yeah.
They were all calling him Wonder Kid. So it's obviously of course it's well known around the place that he's the next big thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially how we're playing at the minute, I think it's Page. I mean, I think with Monga, I think it'd be very silly to write him off this early, because I think we've said quite a few times this season that Marty's system really doesn't help the wingers. Like, they're so isolated, and you can see Monga, he beats one, he beats a second, but then there's always a third or fourth with him because the wingers are so isolated. I think if it was Monga under Enzo, I feel like we might be having a very different conversation, even though Page is one of them, attacking eight to be fantastic. But yeah, I think with the system, if we carried on playing the system, I think Page is the one. It's going to be a first teamer ahead of before Jeremy Monga will be. But different manager, I feel like it'll bring better out of Monga than it does now.
Not to dismiss Steve or Adam, but I'm going to go to the man here who knows everything about this academy. Jack, what are you saying, mate? I bet it must feel like, I mean, I'm guessing you've not got any kids, Jack, but if you did, it'd be like picking between your favourite child. But who is, in your honest opinion, the one that you would most expect to go on and have the best career?
I'll go with the consensus, and I'll say Page as well, because I think with that athleticism, like, imagine him in a couple of years once he's a lot bigger and maybe fills out a bit more. I mean, I think he has all the technical ability as well. And with Monga, I mean, he has had his bright spots this year, but I think maybe that output might let him down in terms of, going to a top side and scoring 15, 20 goals a season. Obviously, this is still his development phase, and he's getting put against 30-plus-year-olds week in, week out, which is obviously really tough. And as you say, the system doesn't really help him. But I think just from what I've seen of Page and the way he's developed this year alone, I mean, I think he was quite sloppy at the start of the year, maybe like struggled under pressure and with some of his touches. But just as the way the season's gone on, especially against Sheffield United, he's just controlling the game, finding the ball into the right areas. So yeah, I'd definitely go for Page.
So Steve, the next thing I want to talk about here, mate, we talk about, why is Aluko not getting minutes when Ricardo and Luke Thomas aren't doing great, and we've not really got an out and out number 10 because Ramsey's injured, so why isn't Page getting more minutes? Even though I don't think Page is an out and out 10. We'll talk about that later. But Steve, my next question is more about the players who we haven't seen in the first team yet. Now, granted, myself here, Steve, I'm guessing you, Adam, probably not Jack. I was going to say we haven't seen too much of the academy players in action. I don't think any of us here, other than maybe Jack, watch kind of the academy or the under 21s and stuff and the under 18s play often. And same to people in the chat, which is why I love getting Jack on to give us a bit of insight. But Steve, I'm going to name two players here because they're both strikers. I know there's more than just these two at the club. You've got Lorenz Hutchinson, who is now being looked at by, apparently, allegedly, the big clubs around Europe. You've got Jake Evans, who can kind of play out wide and up front, and he's not really getting a look in this season. He's made a couple of squads, but he's not played. There is more. So my question, Steve, and Kevin Gray at the back, right? Kevin Gray, who's looking like a really good up and coming centre back. He can't get make a match day squad. So my question, Steve, is: do you think it's poor from Marty? When you've got a bunch of players who aren't doing it on a weekly basis, they're not doing it consistently. There's a lot of players letting him down, letting the fans down. And there is still so many youngsters that can't even get a chance to show their can't get a chance for their opportunity.
Yes, especially against Cheltenham at the weekend. I really thought that we'd be seeing more players coming in, and even on the bench. If you look at 70 minutes, we bring on Jordan Ayew rather than Evans. That screams to me that you're blocking a pathway there for a young lad who really wants to get on the pitch and do his best. And I don't think Ayew brought anything to the team anyway. And then, if you look at the academies now, I might not have seen much football with these young lads, but I do play Football Manager, and so do you lot. So we know a little bit about them. There's a couple in the academy that I like the look of. You mentioned Lorenz Hutchinson. He looks like a decent talent at 17 already. I think that he'll be the next one that progresses into the first team. There's Josh King, who's a Scottish young lad, 18. Don't know where he's at sort of professionally at the moment. But there's Alpha Diallo as well, who's a centre back in the academy on the under 18s. And then if you look at the under 21s, you mentioned Kevin Gray. There's Stevie Bowser, who's I know is injured at the moment, and he's BTG's favourite goalkeeper. But he's somebody that could hopefully take over from Jakob at some point and push into the future. So. Yeah, and there's Bobby and Marty. We've missed an Marty in the side for a while. We need somebody to go and throw away the pendants at some point. So there are plenty of young lads that I think will get given the chance, but I don't think it'll be under this manager. I don't think Marty, with the way the club is at the moment and the fact that we're in between, like we've got old players that are out of contract in the summer or players that don't want to be here, and we've got young players that, whilst want to make the step up, possibly aren't good enough to make that step up just yet. So Marty's that manager that's sort of in between them two. I give it another year, and I think we'll see a lot more of these players coming in because the financial situation of the club that we won't go into, but and the fact that these are all sellable assets, given a couple of years of first team football, 5 million here is a lot of money. So we could see that hopefully progress, and I'd like to see it because we will get behind these lads a lot more than a Jordan Ayew on 70 grand a week who's 33 who doesn't really do anything for the first team.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, let me ask you, mate, we know this isn't Football Manager. We know this isn't FIFA career mode, right? We know that it's not as simple as dropping a 17-year-old into the starting 11 and he's going to do, score the goals or keep the clean sheets. But, Steve mentioned it, Cheltenham, FA Cup, League 2 team, you're 2-0 up. Why are we not seeing some more, youth in the side? Jake Evans got a few Premier League games. He got 3 or 4 Premier League games. He got some minutes, very small minutes, but he still got minutes in the Premier League under Ruud van Nistelrooy. He's not got a look in this season. He missed the under 21s game on the Friday night to then go and travel up to down to Cheltenham on the Saturday and not play a single minute. So do you think that needs to be utilised more? Because again, we'll talk about, I think Monga should get more minutes, I think Aluko should get more minutes, but I'm talking the people even further, away from the current team than that. Do you think they should get an opportunity?
Yeah, 100%. And I think we've said a lot that it's a transition season for the club this season. A lot of high earners going out, a lot of young lads coming in. Steve said bringing on Jordan Ayew. I mean, what was the point? I mean, we know what we're going to get from him. The game weren't really in danger. You may as well bring on Evans. And even when we brought on Wanya Marcel, I mean, we know what we're going to get from him. He was on loan last season in the Dutch second division, weren't he? And he didn't really, rip up trees. So, I mean, my point of view with this is if we're not going to bed him in and play him now, we may as well get him out on loan, get him some experience at the back end of this season, reassess him in the summer when we're going to have a lot of a smaller squad, and then try and reintegrate them that way. I mean, so with Silko, even though it weren't the best loan season last season, he's gone out and played men's football in League One. Could we get the same thing for Evans or maybe League 2, League 1? I think it'll only benefit him if he's not going to play for us.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. I agree. Jack, I mean, Let me ask you about this, because you'll have a better idea than some of us here. Who do you think is closest to maybe being the next one to be given an opportunity at least? I think I suppose like you'd probably say Evans, because at least he's making a squad here or there. But are there any others you think are very close?
I liked that you said Kevin Gray actually, because I think he's got like 3 goals, 3 assists or something from centre back this year. So he's clearly a bit of like a unique type of profile there, and maybe something that if he adapts his game a bit more, then could flourish into something very special at centre back. And I think he's like 6'4" something. Outside of him, you've got Lorenz Hutchinson, I should say, who's scored like 150 goals, I think, in his last like 4 or 5 seasons.
Wow.
But again, I'm not sure why he's not being pushed up to the under-21s, at least at this point. So I think you have to show these players the pathway to the first team and to get into these upper heights and fulfilling that potential. Outside of them, I'd say Darren Motts is one to keep an eye on as well. He's 15 and he's playing for the under-21s already. He's the second youngest scorer in the league behind Monga. And he's scored in consecutive games as well, which makes him the youngest for that. And I think there'll be a lot of interest in him this summer. So it will be interesting to see whether he stays or goes, because if he is to stay, then I think he's someone that could join the first team in maybe this season or next.
Yeah, because I think with the youngsters, right, it's kind of like, Steve, I'll ask you this, like, surely a part of your development, a part of your progression is about constantly challenging the player. Like, if for example, Jerry Monga, are we all, is Jerry Monga too good for PL2, right? He's too good for PL2. Would you agree with that? Yeah. So you can't just stick him in PL2. And Jack just said, Steve, Lorenz Hutchinson is still in the U18s, and he's got this season 12 possible games. This is just league games, 11 games and 13 goals. What? You've got to, surely, like, the pathway has to be up, and it's not like he's too young for the 21s. Monga and Page and Aluko and Evans, they've all played at that level, a younger age, I'm guessing, 17, 16, 15. So Darren Motsey and the under 21s at 15. So does that show maybe there's a little, I don't know, maybe someone in the club doesn't quite know what they're doing? I don't know. Or am I being cynical?
Possibly. I can see why. Like, why haven't the club moved him into under 21s if he's good enough? But then if you look at the under 21s, we currently have, we've got Armani Richards, who's up front. Popov is there. Jake Evans and Tucker Thomas has played there a few times this season, but he's not there anymore. Is he going to play ahead of those guys? So would you block their pathway? But then why aren't you bringing Evans into the first team, so then you can bring him up to the under 21s? It's the amount of weird decisions this football club makes. It baffles me. It baffles a lot of people, and especially if you want to prove to these lads that there is a pathway to the first team. That's the most important thing, because these players will just leave. They'll go somewhere else and they'll get first team football, and then we lose out on that potential revenue source going forward. Unless you can show them where a clear plan, and that's it. We don't know, do we? Let's be honest. We're all guessing here that there hasn't been a pathway, or there has been a pathway. We're not sure about it. But if he's too good for the under 18s at 17, then you move him into the under 21s. If he's too good for the under 21s, then you send him out on loan. He's 17, so he can go out on loan now. So send him out on loan, get him some first team football. But yeah, I honestly don't know. I would love to see this lad, starting a couple of games in the under 21s, pre-season with us next summer as well. And then potentially a pathway into the first team from there. Because if he's good enough, then we don't have to replace him with another striker because Manju comes in, and in the first 10 games he scored 4 goals in the first team. And you're like, fucking hell, we don't need to buy a striker now. Look at this guy. It's the perfect example of how there should be a pathway. But this is Leicester City, and we don't do things easily.
Well, let me ask you this, Jack. Steve mentioned loans there. One thing that I think has always been the case at Leicester City for at least 10 years, and that's not an over-exaggeration, is I think the loan system has has been a failure personally. Now I know there's a couple that have worked out. I know Ben Chilwell went out on loan a couple times and did well, and he came back. And Kieran Dewsbury Hall, Luton Town, what a loan move that was for him. Harvey Barnes. But I think there's, I look at that under-21 squad now, Jack, and I know it's the under-21s, and these players I'm talking about are under-21, but 21 or under. Chris Popov, 21. Amani Richards, 21. Kian Pennant, 21. I don't know if he's left, actually. Kirsten or Cherry, obviously 19. There's a few in there that are 20 years old. And I'm just looking here. Jamari Lindsay, 21. Obviously, Stevie Bowser, I know he's injured at the minute, but 20. So do you think maybe some of these players, Jack, should have been sent out on loan by now? Because, as Steve said, I think you have to be 17 to go out on loan. There's a lot of talent in that under-21s team that are over that age and that could have been playing first-team regular minutes by now.
Yeah, and I think that's where the sort of age groups are starting to, change, because we've got that sort of Popov and Braybrook, Galvez, Nelson kind of time, and they're kind of phasing out now and moving on to either loans or going to different clubs or moving into the first team like Nelson is. And then you're seeing that sort of younger generation with the likes of Achere, Gray, Amati, all these people that are maybe 19, 18 and are looking for that 21s football. So I think, they do need to go out on loan. And one thing I will credit the club for this year is I do think the loans have actually been quite successful. We've seen Braybrook doing very well in League Two. We've seen Cartwright doing well at Falkirk, Tom Wilson-Brown at Swindon. So I think they've maybe chose the right clubs this year. And if they can do that for them players, then I think that would be ideal.
What about you, Adam? What are your thoughts on this, mate? Because I suppose there is maybe an element of, with the really young ones, with the 17-year-old, Jake Evans, for example, maybe, with a player that young, you want to protect them, you want to look after them, do you know what I mean? Rather than sending them over to League Two where they're going to get kicked, the shit out of, basically. At that young age, maybe it's best for them to be under your kind of watch. But then they're not getting those regular minutes. And I suppose, and it goes back to how frustrated I was on the weekend, Adam, where, he's missed an under-21s game just to travel with the squad and not play. And it's like, he could have been playing 90 minutes either for the under-21s or on loan somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. I think you always see that first team football is so important. I mean, if you look at our best cases, Harvey Barnes going to West Brom for that 6 months and was brilliant and came straight into the team. Dewsbury Hall, the same. Chilwell, I know obviously we're that little step lower because at the time they got championship loans. Now maybe they're going to League One, League Two. But I feel like as a young lad, even keeping them local, your Northampton Towns, your Notts Counties, if you can get loan deals for them. So they're still, within the club, they're still, still not far from Seagrave and stuff like that. So you can do meetings and you can still keep them, close with the club, but they're still going out and getting them first team minutes. And if they're not going to play for us and they're clearly, playing well in the under-21s, you might as well throw them in and see what happens. Even if you do a short-term loan for the rest of this season, 6 months, see how you get on, reassess it in the summer. And if it's not worked, it don't matter because it's still only like 18.
Yeah. Daedalus says, hey, you had Branson and Huth come in as loan officers but never stayed long. There has got to be an issue with the structure. I'd have Cherry on the bench. I mean, yeah, Jack, just give us a little bit of context. What would, I know it's difficult because they're kind of in different age groups, but who do you think is looking the most promising at the minute? Is it Hutchinson, Lorenz Hutchinson? Is that who is looking likely to be maybe a striker that breaks into the first team next, or would you put Jake Evans above Hutchinson? Where would you put these?
I'd still say Evans just because of what he did for the 21s both last year and even this season. Like the way he's reacted to maybe not. I think he may have been promised stuff towards the end of last season, definitely by Ruud van Nistelrooy, where he started to give him minutes because he was kind of like on par with Monga to an extent. Like they were both brought up at the same time. So I think he may have been, made promises and they haven't been fulfilled, and he's been brought back to the 21s. So I would still go for Evans, but I think it's kind of strange how Marty's sort of dealt with him this year. I don't think he's very in favour of him. maybe because he's a bit lightweight. So I think you could maybe see a Cherry just because he's that bit older, he's a bit more physical, and maybe that would translate better.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is for sure, I think we are going to need one of these. I mean, one of these strikers is going to have to come into the squad you'd expect next summer, because we're losing Daka, we're losing Jordan Ayew. I mean, we should be buying another striker as well. Don't get me wrong. All right, we need I think a starter, but one of these strikers, maybe more than one, is going to have to be used, I think, as a squad player next season, and rightly so. Adam, let me ask you this, mate, because Jack mentioned your Braybrooks and your Alvezes, alongside Nelson earlier in the show. But let me bring this up. Will Alves is going viral in Huddersfield on Huddersfield's Twitter after his game yesterday. I'm gonna share the screen, and we will watch the goal if anybody hasn't seen it yet. You've been living under a rock. It's not the best of quality, so apologies. But yeah, what a goal this is, and I think he just had an incredible performance overall. I think he nearly scored a second as well. So there's a great goal for Will Alves. But Will Alves, Sammy Braybrook, Adam. As I said earlier about we're all looking at the new shiny players, right? The Pages and Mongers. These two players suffered horrific injuries when at the height of their development, if you like. And it sets them back a year, doesn't it? Because you're out for a year. It sets you back a year. But it is great to see both of them now, because I think a lot of Leicester fans, including myself at times, kind of written them off. Like, the injuries have set them back. They probably won't go on to do anything. But it's great to see them both flourishing now at their respective clubs. Braybrooks smashing it at Newport, now at Chesterfield, makes his debut, gets man of the match. It's great to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was surprised Braybrook didn't go to a League One club, because I thought he was performing really well for Newport. Obviously, I know they're struggling a bit, but I didn't know if he was going to be able to jump a division. But yeah, I think it's just good for us. I think when you've got, very young lads like, 12, 13 who are picking their club, I feel like it's good to look at stories where if it's not worked at Leicester, they've still gone off and got good careers. Because if you just see, if they don't work at Leicester, it just doesn't work out for them. We can say, look, even if it don't work for us, you can get a good football league career, and it's a better sell.
I was going to say, Adam, sorry, I was going to just jump in there, like Calvin Bassey. Bassey, obviously, he's now playing in the Premier League. There's others. Who was, I don't know how you pronounce the guy over in Scotland who's doing the business at the minute. Mawan Hisi or something like that.
Go on, have a go.
Mawan Hisi.
Maswan
Hisi. But there's another one, right? So it is possible. Who's the Kipri, right? Is it Kipri? He's doing Kipri, okay. Yeah. He's doing okay in the leagues, right? His career isn't over by any stretch of the imagination. So no, I agree with you, Adam. Completely, mate. That we want them to do well for us. We don't want to lose them and go to another club and smash it. I'll tell you what was interesting. I'm seeing Callum Elder on the pitch, for Derby. I remember when he was in the academy.
That's a throwback. Yeah, that was. I know. I couldn't believe he was still playing. It feels like ages ago, but it's and you got like Josh Knight as well down at Portsmouth now. He's playing well. Obviously, he did all right when he come to us. Portsmouth came to us and got the point. So. Yeah, I think it's just important just when you got young people, if they're not sure to go to like an Us or maybe like a Man City or whatever, I don't know, say there's a pathway for you. You can see that with the amount of young players we are playing, but if it don't work for us, you can still have a successful career away from Leicester. Yeah,
I totally agree, mate. Steve, what are your thoughts on Alves and Braybrook? And because we were quite critical of the Braybrook situation, that he was kind of pulled out of a League Two club and sent back to another League Two club. But I think I read this week he actually spoke about it and said he thinks it was the right decision. Sammy Braybrook, although he is going to say that, of course. But he's, I think he's further up the league now, right? He's in a better team. But do you think there's a chance, Steve, that it could still happen for these two or one of them? Because Will Alves, I mean, we know it's the injuries. We know it's the injuries, right? Like, injuries set young players back big time. But, Will Alves is 21. Is Braybrook the same age? Are they both 21? I think, or maybe I can't remember. I know Will Alves is 20. Sorry, Will Alves is 20. Braybrook is. Let me just fact check in real time. Sammy Braybrook is 21. So Braybrook 21, Alves 20. As I said, Steve, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall didn't break into that first team until 21. So it is still possible.
It is. So with Will Alves, and I said this in the group chat earlier, he's missed 22 games so far this season already with a foot injury. I just think that he's too injury prone. Like, it doesn't mean that he won't, make it as a footballer, or, he won't potentially make it into the Championship at some point. I just don't think it's going to be at Leicester, unfortunately. Sammy Braybrook, again, with his injury record, it's unfortunate. He's doing well in League Two, but I don't know where his ceiling is. I don't think it will be Championship level anytime soon, unfortunately. And if we were to go into next season with Sammy in midfield and then Alves in the cam role, it wouldn't be what I'd want to do personally. That's not because I don't like the guys. I think they're Leicester lads. They've come through the academy. It'd be great to see them work out, but I just personally don't think it will, which is a shame because they are good players. I just don't think they're good enough for our level, which is horrible to say because we're a Championship club.
Well, I was going to say, hey, imagine we went down to League One. Then they would definitely
perfect
be
in League One. I would happily take them in League One. That's for sure.
Yeah. Jack, talk to me there, mate, on Alves and Braybrook. What do you see for their future? Not like you've got a mystic ball or anything, but you know what I'm saying, right? How do you think there's a chance that they could come back in? Because I mean, I saw some funny, some funny comments on Twitter yesterday saying, Alves with them low socks. It's Kiernan Dewsbury Hall 2.0. He's gonna come back, but for me, Jack, like if Alves was to stay fit, I think there is a chance he could come in and be a squad player at the least, right? So how have you found both of their developments this season, especially?
Yeah, I think it's important for them just to be playing football at this point, because they both went out on, I think, last season it was Alves with Cardiff. I think he had some injuries and that maybe didn't go perfectly. And I think Braybrook was at Newport at one point, and wait, that's this season. Dundee actually last season, and I think he played like 8 games in total. So I think it's just important for him to get bedded into men's football and then maybe see what it's like at Leicester. But I think it's so tough with them now coming into that team because they already have young players like Page and who are 4 or 5 years younger. And around them, you'd want more experienced players to be brought in to maybe complement them. So it's kind of tough as to where you bring in Braybrook, Alves into that situation, I think.
Yeah. Let me look at some of these comments. So it will be away from us. They're just not quite where we need them to be, both quality wise and in physically. So yeah, we'll wait and see, Daniel, what happens. That's why that's part of why we don't treat the youth well. I'm convinced I'm saying this name right. Maswanhise. That's the only way that can be said, surely. Maswanhise got no loans or anything from the club. There was another comment here from Ryan saying Cartwright is doing well in Scotland. Is the Tom Wilson Brown as well? I think is he in Scotland? Swindon. Yeah, it's Henry Cartwright. Is he at Falkirk? He was. I don't know if he still is.
Yeah, he's at Falkirk. So you've got Braybrook out at Chesterfield, Apoku at Newport, Wilson Brown at Swindon, Jordan Joseph, who we've not mentioned, another JJ at Tranmere, who's doing okay, Henry Cartwright. And then, Kai Pennant is at Gateshead, I believe. Harry French is at Boston. So there's a few players out on loan, just not the ones you'd expect them to go out.
Does anybody know what the Apoku situation is? Because if I'm getting this twisted, correct me, please. Didn't Leuven sign him from like some American university team or something?
Yeah, it's like college, like university team, weren't it? Yeah.
How has that happened? That's crazy. And he's 24 and he's on
he
loan
was at Syracuse. Then he went to. Then he came to us. We sent him on loan to Leuven, and then he's been.
He broke his leg, didn't he? I think, or did his ACL or broke his leg? One of the two. And he's 24. Is anything ever gonna come from? I mean, he's playing in League Two. Why?
He's gonna lead our line next year, Locks. It's the Aluko revolution. He's gonna be our main striker.
Do you know about Jack? Do you know anything about? I mean, he's out of your age range. Obviously, you look at the younger players and that. But do you know anything about Aluko?
Not really, but do you know what the confusing thing about him is? He was brought when we're in the Premier League as well, so it wasn't even like it was with the idea of him coming into the Championship, which again is very surprising given where he's ended up. But I think that injury definitely stunted his development. I think he was out for like over a year after that.
Yeah, no, I think he did break his leg. He's probably going to get sold, says Sean. Yeah, you can't. I don't think can't see us getting much money for him, to be fair. But
he's out of contract in the summer, I believe. So
is he?
Yeah.
Well, why don't we just release him? Why are we not released? Just let him go. Let Newport take him for. You know what I mean? I don't get it. I just don't get it. Okay. Well, Adam, you spoke about the pathway a little bit, mate. I mean, one big risk when you're a Leicester City of the footballing world and many other clubs is the youth players, these younger players, they actually do work out and they can get poached. And I think, we were shitting it, really, with Louis Page, with Jeremy Monga and Jake Evans. And if I'm not mistaken, am I right? Someone correct me here, please. They've all, Page and Evans have signed pro deals. Is that right? But Monga's on he's going to sign one in the summer?
Yeah, he's effectively signed a pre-contract to his pro deal. So that'll come into effect when he turns 17.
So have Page and Evans signed a pro contract?
Yes.
I think so.
And does that mean they cannot be poached on the cheap? We can demand a fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some
we
good
can
news.
we can with Monga as well. And Hutchinson, I think he's signed. Is he signed a pro deal? He's 17, so I assume he's signed a pro deal.
Yeah.
Oh, I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can demand fees for these players, but it depends on what we can get out of the club, out of the paying club.
Yeah. So my point here, Adam, is I mean, Jack said maybe maybe Ruud van Nistelrooy made certain promises to your Mongas and your Pages, and your Evans last season. They need a pathway, don't they, Adam? And I always tell this story. I tell the same story every time we talk about the youth players. I don't know if it's 100% true. I heard it from somebody. Apparently, it's true with Trey Nyoni. I think that's how you say his name. Apparently, he had conversations with Leicester, and those conversations were heavily around money. He had conversations with Liverpool, and they laid out this amazing plan for his development, and obviously he went there. So we have to lay out a pathway for these players, Adam. And I know it's not always possible because you get new manager, right? Ruud van Nistelrooy might have had ideas for Evans, and Marty doesn't. But the club itself should lay out a clear pathway and show these younger players why Leicester City is the best place for you to stay and develop.
Yeah, 100%. I think the main example is Calvin Bassett. I think he would have started at centre back and at left back quite a few times. Pretty much since his when he started breaking in at Rangers, he would have started before us. So. Yeah, they need to see that there's examples of players getting a chance. And I must say, although we could have done better, I feel like we have done a decent job of bedding in the youngsters, Like, I probably a little bit more with Monga. Like, I thought he might have played more than he actually has. But with Page and now Aluko starting to get games, they hopefully can see that there's a that their pathway is there with us, and they don't got to go to a Liverpool and I think even Omni was playing games like in the League Cup and FA Cup last season, weren't I think I remember watching them get like Plymouth or something like that. So but I heard the same story as that as well, because he was down at the local club to us at Elston Park. He was, so I've heard exactly the same thing that you've just said.
It was the same situation with a lad that went to Man City as well, that was poached from Man City's, that we were talking about money. He's just
He's
Sorry?
called Tyrese Nubissi, that's his name.
That's the one. Yeah, he's gone to a French team now, hasn't he? He's left and gone there.
Yeah,
same,
he's at
same
Strasbourg.
situation.
Okay. There you go. Yeah, somebody's put it as well. There we go. So, yeah, I mean, Steve, like, Adam's right. Let's not talk all bad about the club. They've done certain things very well, I think, right, with some of these youngsters. And I do think whether it was the manager's idea or the club's idea last season, we did start to see the integration of Jake Evans and Jeremy Monga ahead of this season. Obviously, that's changed under Marty a little bit on Evans' perspective, but we saw Louis Page early this season. We did see a lot of Jeremy Monga. We've seen Ben Nelson finally, Badi Aluko now as well. But we need to maintain that, don't we, Steve? We need to be consistent. And when a player proves they're good enough to at least get the opportunity, we have to give them that and not do something completely bozo, like bring on Jordan Ayew in the 70th minute of a game, or 60th, whatever it was, rather than the 17-year-old youngster when you're 2-0 up, comfortable.
100%, because as I said at the start of the show, these players are the future revenue of the club. Unfortunately, the way PSR, the regulations are, is that you the only way to get proper profit is by selling your younger players, your youth players, which is stupid. You should be prioritizing losing your best talent for as much money as you can just to balance the books. It's backwards, in my opinion. But if you bring these young players through and you can get 15-20 million pounds for them in a couple of years, it makes all the sense in the world, because you're not spending money. You're using the training ground that you spent 100 million pounds on to produce these players. So give them the pathway into the first team, because the players that we see this season, we've all moaned and complained about how there's no effort in some of these players. You can point out several of them. You look at the weekend, and we started with Page and Aluko and Silko Thomas. The amount of energy in that team already jumped up by at least 50%. You could see Aluko at some point being in the 18-yard box as an attacking fullback. It was crazy to see. We haven't seen that all season. So I don't think we would have had half the amount of unrest in the stands against the players if we had more young players in the squad, because you'd accept that they're maybe not at the level, but they're getting there. So, and if Marty had given them the opportunity at the start of the season, they would be ready now. There wouldn't be this issue of like, oh, we're chucking them in against Southampton and he gets sent off in the first half, because of two silly mistakes. So I think Marty will unfortunately either live or die by this in his Leicester career as a manager. Will he have the guts to drop some of the players that are out of contract in the summer? Because the perfect storm is when we went down the first time from the Premier League, we had players that are out of contract that come March time, April time, they didn't want to get injured, so they weren't putting the effort in. If we get to that point this year and we're anywhere near that relegation zone, the same thing will happen again. So if you integrate them now, you can drop these players that are going to be out of contract and play these young lads, and hopefully that's enough to get us over the line, and that gives them minutes for next year. So give them a pathway, Marty. I'm looking at you directly now. Do it. I'll find you and I'll give you a kit.
Yeah, I was going to say, so this is my favourite part of the stream, Jack. Let me ask you this, mate. So we've spoken about Lorenz Hutchinson, we've spoken about Kevin Gray, or Cherry, Darren Motzi. Are there any others, mate, that you can tell us about a little bit? That you think maybe go, because you see what all the fans say online about certain youngsters and that they should be given an opportunity. Are there any there that are going under the radar a little bit that you think also maybe aren't too far away from deserving an opportunity?
One I'd say to keep an eye on is Riley Carr. He just joined Leicester this summer, I think, signed as scholar, and he came from, I think it was like Hertford Town or something, which was like, I think it was like step 7 or something. I might be wrong, but it was like a very low level, and he was playing against men week in, week out, and there was quite a lot of interest from other clubs around him. So I think it was very important that we brought him in, and he's done really well this season. He scored quite a lot of goals, and it's quite powerful. So he's someone I could maybe see translating well to men's football. He's quite tall as well. And the other ones, like I said before, I'd say Darren Motzi. I could easily see him coming. But I do think that the likes of Man City, Liverpool will be interested in him this summer. I think that's just a given. Outside of them, maybe Mershad Ali. He's a fullback. I think he was nominated for the PL2 Player of the Month in August. He's quite good. I think he represented England as well. And there's still players like Michael Golding that are in the academy that maybe should be knocking on the door of first team.
Who? He's a ghost.
Yeah, Jack, Michael Golden, mate. I mean, we have obviously our conspiracy, and I think it's a quite known conspiracy that deal was very much PSR based with the Keane and Dewsbury Hall deal. Do you share that opinion? Because it was down as £5 million. That's a lot of money to spend on somebody that has played, I don't know, a handful of games probably in over a year now, 18 months.
Yeah, it's such a weird one, that one, because I think for Chelsea, he came off the bench in like an FA Cup game, which it says a lot considering he couldn't even, make a bench for us. I think he played one game. It was like a minute against Southampton or maybe Ipswich at the end of the season. And I've seen recently that they've moved him down to the 6 against Everton last week. So maybe they're trying to transform him into there. But I think he's one that definitely needs a loan soon and just take it from there.
Yeah, it is a weird one, isn't it, Adam? Michael Golding. I mean, we all suspected it, and we're not, that might not even definitely be the case, but things haven't really gone to plan for him. And I think when he has played, like in pre-season, for me personally anyway, he didn't stand out in the slightest. I mean, Louis Page stood out in midfield, at 17 or 6. I think he might have even been 16 at the time. Whereas Michael Golding didn't. And it's just, I think he might have even had quite a nasty injury last season as well, potentially. I think I read somewhere. But yeah, maybe they're, as Jack said, that's, that they've tried him out in the 6. Maybe they're trying to find his best role, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Because I remember watching a pre-season game. I think he played like the first half, and you like the ball just kept going under his foot. He looked miles off it, like without trying to be disrespectful. But I think Jack's right. I think he could just do with a loan. See how he gets on again. Test the waters for the rest of the season, and reassess things in the summer. Because we don't know how fit our squad's going to be at that point. So let's just try and get these lads as much first team football as possible. But yeah, I don't know. He's not one that particularly excited me when I've watched him, to be honest.
Yeah. Finally, Steve, let me ask you, mate. I mean, Ryan's mentioned 3 here. Motzi, Carr, Hugo Delisle as well, which I keep hearing a lot about. The Leicester Academy, the Seagrave machine is just continuing to produce. I know some of these players obviously we've got from elsewhere, but you know what I mean. The Leicester Academy is continuing to produce. And as you said, Steve, it is the future revenue of the club. It is the future playing squad of the club. And unfortunately, Steve, with how football works these days, if they work out and they're successful, they probably won't be here for long anyway. Look at Ben Chilwell, look at Keane and Dewsbury Hall, look at Harvey Barnes. They all go eventually. It is maybe the crap's not the right word here, but the not so great ones who end up staying, i.e. Mr. Thomas.
Luke Thomas. Luke Thomas. Sorry, I had a cough there. I was choked. Yeah, Hamza Chowdhury, there's another one. But I'm guessing that if we bring these players through and we can get 15-20 million pounds for it, stabilizes the club properly. It means that we can invest more in the playing squad and hopefully not spend significant amount of money on people like Oliver Skipp, but enough where you can bring in better players that help these younger players improve even more. So, but there has to be a pathway. There really has to be, because I don't want to keep losing decent talent to other clubs, and then they make it, and then we go, well, fuck, you mentioned Calvin Bassey, perfect example, looked like a really good player for us in the youth academy, and then went to Rangers, but Rangers, Ajax, and now Fulham, and he's an outstanding centre back, somebody that we could have used last season, but he slipped through our fingers, and we didn't get anything for him.
Sorry, this is my last question. I promise, for all of you. I'll ask Jack first. Jack, I want you to name, we're all expecting Leicester to be in the Championship next season. We all think we'll be in the Championship next season. Which 3, or not 3, but Jack, name the players you think are good enough to starting week in, week out next season in the Championship. So I mean, I think a lot of us will say the same, but I'm saying Monga, I'm saying Page, and I'm saying Bade Aluko. So does anybody have any? Jack, do you think there is anybody else who is quite there yet who will start for Leicester City next season?
No, not yet. I think there'd probably be more squad players kind of on the fringes, but it all depends on what happens this summer, really, because a lot of players are out of contract, so that could change everything. And depending on who goes, like Abdul, or I even see Monga had interest from like Tottenham for this summer. So yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to that, and at least we have academy players that could then come into that and maybe replace them.
But you agree with those three, yeah? Those three will they're a shoe-in to start next season. Any Adam, Steve, what are you thinking?
Yeah, just the same, I'll be honest. Yeah, I mean, you never knew who's going to break through kind of last minute. I mean, no one probably know a lot about Jeremy Monga this time last year. So you just don't know who breaks in at the end. But as of what we see, I think, Ricardo goes and you just replace him with Bade Aluko. I think it makes complete sense for us.
Financially as well, Steve, just Ricardo out, Aluko in, or I don't know. I know Ayu's been playing a lot as a 9, but when he plays as a 10, right? But Ayu out, Page in, stuff like that.
Yeah, I am going to shout a name out there who we all know that BTG love. He's an English South African. He's a goalkeeper. I do think he'll make his debut in the cup next season, Stevie Bowser, and hopefully he can replace Jakob, who we've not been that positive about.
Yeah, well, lovely. Two of them, to be fair, the only two that I've spoken. Stevie Bowser and Bade Aluko, two great. They just seem like genuine, down to earth lads. So yeah, hopefully we hope for the best for both of them and the others, of course. And we'll never forget the old TikTok saga last season with Jeremy Monga on his TikTok with his mates. That was good fun. You literally had 25, 30, 40-year-old blokes on TikTok watching a 15-year-old talk with his mates, which was quite amusing.
You forget the Jake Evans and Final Whistle TikTok video as well when he was on live with him. That was crazy at the same time.
That did happen, yes, but it was very quickly deleted.
It was very quickly deleted, yep.
Yeah, it was. Anyway, we're going to end it there. It's always good fun talking about these young players, the future of Leicester City. Now, just a very quick one. I always shout him out serious. So that is Jack's X account. You can also see in the description there as well the Rising Foxes, which is a brilliant. That's where I get all my news from for the academy players and the results and things like that. So go and check that out. Thanks to Adam as well. Thanks to Steve. Obviously, thanks again to Jack. Thanks to all of the people who've been getting their comments in. Much appreciated. Just Steve, just you may as well, because you're here, shout out your running thing.
Yeah, I'm doing a running thing. It's quite a long distance running thing for charity. I'm doing the Leeds Marathon.
I made it sound like a run to the shops, didn't I?
Yeah, no, it's a lot more than that. That's for sure. I'm doing it was raising money for LAMP, which is a mental health charity. If I know January is quite a tight month for people, but it's not until May. So if you are going to donate, and it's very much appreciated if you do, I will put the link on my Twitter. I think it's my pinned link on Twitter anyway. So go give it a follow, chuck me some money if you can. And then when you do donate, I will be writing all the names on the back of my running shirt or the front of it or wherever I can on my body. I've saved a very specific area for locks for the run because nobody should be struggling alone, and I will be running that marathon, and I need all the help I can get. So
good stuff. Everyone, when you donate, remember to put down John Rudkin's name, Luke Thomas's name, Jordan Ayu's name, all of these lot.
If they want to if John Rudkin, Ayu, and all if they want to donate, they can do. I know they can afford to. So it's not a struggling month for them, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Right, cheers all. Thank you so much. We will be back. We'll have a match preview tomorrow afternoon for the Coventry game. So that'll be an interesting one. And obviously we'll have the watch long as well on the weekend. So cheers all. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. No more 200 grand, but our new sponsors, The Beautiful Frame, have smashed it with this Jamie Vardy piece. It's unreal. They're a local Leicester business as well, which makes it even better. And not just City, they do prints for other clubs as well. So it's perfect if you are stuck for a birthday or Christmas present for one of your friends or family. Now, the best bit, they have sorted BTG viewers out with a discount. Just use BTG12 at checkout for money off. BTG12. Grab yours now at thebeautifulframe.com. The link is down below.